Stories create your legacy, and stories anchor you in the here and now. That's what I'm thinking about right now as I think about what stories mean to us and how they change our lives and how they connect us. I hope that you saw my post from yesterday. It was called Because He Was a Writer, a Memorial Day story. And I'm fully aware of the fact that my Canadian grandfather would not necessarily have been celebrated as a veteran in his own native country, because Memorial Day is not there for their last Monday of May holiday like it is here in the States. But my grandfather did live in the US for well over 40 years. And he never did become an American, but he certainly had opinions on American politics. And I think of him every Memorial Day. And the reason why I was thinking of him specifically yesterday was because just the week before I discovered a box full of stuff. One of those boxes of stuff you get when your family house gets sold. And it was full of dance recital programs and school projects from kindergarten to middle school to college papers. And within it was one single folder. It was a folder that contained a memoir in progress, a memoir that was outlined and that contained a few pieces of very thin typing paper and my grandfather's chicken scratch. Luckily, my grandmother was a typist and she loved him, and she must have loved him enough to read his handwriting because she translated it for us. And she would have typed it all up for him. But I discovered his stories, and they were the ones he was writing about. They were very much inflected by his experiences in World War II. He was a bombardier with the Royal Canadian Air Force. They were inflected by that, but they were more focused on the life before, the innocence that he and his friends shared before that great event changed, transformed everything. I wonder now, when he would have been writing these things in the late 80s, probably right around 1989, because he died in 91, I wonder what he was thinking in terms of his legacy. You have to be aware of that as you're writing a memoir, of course, when you're in your late 60s. Was he thinking about his grandkids? At that point, I myself was about 10 years old, and I wanted to be a writer just like him. I already knew that. I'm certain he could never have imagined me in my basement in upstate New York finding his writings and just saying, yes, I always knew that I wanted to follow in your footsteps, and here I am. He left us a legacy. He gave me more meaning to Memorial Day than might ever have been possible. There haven't been other veterans in our family since the World Wars. And so I was so grateful to be connected to him. And that anchored me in my story right in the here and now. Even as I'm writing it in a house full of guests and little kids running around everywhere and trying to make the day's plans so we could eventually make it to the Memorial Day parade late in the afternoon, it anchored me in that here and now to remember him, to go back to where he would have been writing on Cape Cod, Massachusetts sometime in the late 80s, writing his story that took him back to Canada in the 30s. And it let me be more present. And that's why we tell stories. We tell them to understand our past, but to also anchor in where we are right now, to make connections to the people who are around us, like we would be if we're writing something like a blog post that we expect to be read within hours or days. And as I think was proven by my grandfather's work, that may be uncovered 30 years in the future by grandchildren or just by people who are seeking answers and solace and some clue to what it means to be human and to get a perspective from somebody new. Stories are integral to our lives at every corner, from the books you read to your babies, to the first chapter books you read when you're starting to figure out that written word and the magic how it can transport you as a reader. Up to now, when you're thinking about how to use words and stories to build your business and to reach new people. our stories are always going to be important to anchor us in our here and now, to help us understand our past, to help plot out our future. So tomorrow, I want to invite you to join with me to dive a little deeper into story, to understand the inner workings of story, so that you have a little bit of insight into what you're doing when you next sit down at a blog post, when you next start sharing an anecdote with a friend or a colleague or a client. We tell stories all the time, but part of the magic of them, we don't really realize what we're doing. We don't understand the spell that we're casting. Well, when you understand that a little better, your stories become much stronger. You are able to connect more readily at a much deeper level. So tomorrow I'm offering my Story Triangle webinar. It's at 1 p.m. Eastern, and you can watch it from wherever you are. It's completely free, and I would love to have you and any of your friends and colleagues who are interested in discovering how to make storytelling work for them. It may be that you want to be working on writing into your memoir and writing some short pieces. Who I'm ideally talking to are people who are using story in blogs and in other online content, perhaps in video, to connect with people they want to help and serve. I love working with therapists and with coaches and with other thought leaders and entrepreneurs who are in the transformation business. That business of diving deep and understanding that we are all here on some beautiful, mutually shared evolution. Stories change lives. Stories work because of change. Let's talk about that tomorrow. Please join me. Story Triangle is at 1 p.m. Eastern on June 1st. I'll include the link below so you can let me know you're coming. I'd love to see you there. I'd love to have you join my community of storytellers, because the storyteller in me sees the storyteller in you, even if you haven't started seeing that one person yet. He or she is there. I'll see you tomorrow. Be well.